Okay, everybody, welcome back to week 2 of e-learning. I have actually missed being in the classroom, but unfortunately, we're going to have to do this via virtual camera, virtual video from the time being, or for the time being. So we are going to go ahead and get started on the first video for the week back. We are actually in formative number 2. Oh, sorry, the review for formative number 2. You should have gotten that packet the week before we got out. So I'll give you a second to go ahead and get that out. And we are going to flip to, let's see, what page are we going to flip to? Let's flip to, I'm just looking at my notes here. We are going to go to page 4, okay? So we are on page 4. See, you can actually see that here. And we are going to go ahead and okay, so we are working on quadratic equations, quadratic functions this unit. And if you recall, if you dig way deep, and you might have to go back to some of your old notes, we started out the unit by talking about graphing quadratics, okay? And so that's what we're going to start with right now. We have an equation. It's a quadratic, y equals x squared plus 4x plus 1, okay? And we're just going to fill out this. My a is 1, my b is 4, and my c is also 1. Okay, and the parabola is going to open up because we have a positive a value, okay, a positive a value. The axis of symmetry, if we all remember, is x equals negative b over 2 times a, and that only works if you're in standard form, and we are in standard form. So we're going to do a negative 4 over 2 times 1, which is going to give me a negative 2. So my axis of symmetry is x equals negative 2, okay? If you go over here to the right-hand side, vertical stretch or shrink, not applicable. A translation, up or down, that's going to be a translation. We have a right here, we can see 1, so we are going to go up by 1. And as a reflection, it is not, because that x value, that a value is positive, okay? Our y-intercept is our c value. So our intercept is going to be 0, 1, okay? And our vertex, you know that your vertex is always the axis of symmetry. It's the x value, and then we plug that in to get our y. So we're going to do y equals, we've got a negative 2 squared plus 4 times negative 2 plus 1. Okay, we're going to get y equals 4 minus 8 plus 1. That's going to give us y equals negative 3. So your vertex is always an ordered pair. Okay, and we're going to have negative 2, comma, negative 3. Okay, there's your vertex. Now we're looking for the x-intercepts, and we know the x-intercept is going to be, I would like to think of it as a number, comma, 0. So we're going to fill 0 in for y and solve for our x. 0 equals x squared plus 4x plus 1. Now I can look at that and let me think for a second. That is not going to be factorable. We could use the quadratic formula, but why do that when we have an a value that's 1 of an even? We could just go ahead and we could complete the square. So let's refresh our memories on completing the square. Okay, you are going to get your a has to be a coefficient of 1, which it is. We're going to get our c over on the other side. Okay, so we have negative 1 equals x squared plus 4x. Okay, we need to get our new c value. Our c equals, we're going to have our b, which is 4, divided by 2, and we square it. That's 2 squared, or 4. Okay, so if you recall, if you use something to one side, you have to do it to the other. So we're going to do negative 1 plus 4 equals x squared plus 4x plus 4. Okay, you're going to go ahead and you're going to factor that. We get x plus 2, quantity squared, equals, that negative 1 plus 4 is 3. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring that down here so I can actually have some room to work. We have x plus 2, quantity squared, equals 3. I'm going to take the square root because that's how you get rid of a square, positive or negative, and we get x plus 2 equals, let's see, the positive or negative square root of 3. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to subtract 2, and I get x equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 3. And that's going to be my exact answer, okay? And then, so that's my exact. x equals negative 2 plus or minus 3. My approximate, you're going to go ahead and you're going to need your graphing calculator. Okay, let's go ahead and we're going to do negative 2 plus the square root of 3. That's going to give me x equals, what do we have there? Negative 0.27. And we can also do negative 2 minus the square root of 3. And we're going to get x equals, and these are approximate. I should have done approximate. Negative 3.73. Okay, so those are my approx. And those are going to be my x-intercepts. Okay, so let's go ahead and have that arrow down here. Okay, so we have all this now. We're going to go ahead and we're going to fill out our table of values. And this is, this is a refresher from way back when. We put our vertex in the middle and then we go up and back. So my vertex, like we said, was negative 2, negative 3. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in my x-intercepts. Okay, and we had, let's see what we had here. We had an approximate negative 3.73 comma 0. There was one. And we had a negative 0.27 comma 0. Okay, we had our y-intercept. We'll put that on there. That was, look up here, that was a 0, 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and put 0, 1 up here. And again, think about it. From negative 2 to 0, we were up 2. So we're going to go back 2, right? So negative 2 minus 2 is going to be negative 4. And it's a reflection because it's, remember, it's symmetrical. So we're going to have negative 4, 1. And we're just going to call that reflection of y-intercept. Okay? And we're going to go ahead and we're going to go over to, let's see here. I'm just getting a piece of paper. We're going to go over to our graph. Okay? And we are going to graph this thing. I don't have my ruler in front of me. Shame on me, right? If you guys have a straight edge, use your IDs, whatever you have with you. We're going to do our y. I'm going to improvise here with a folded piece of paper. I know these take some time. Woo. Let's see if I can get that. That's close enough for now. Okay, we're going to go ahead and we are going to, let's graph our vertex, which is negative 2, 1, 1. We're going to have a negative 2, negative 3. Here's my vertex. And remember, we said it opens up, so we can see now what it's going to look like. Okay, we have a y-intercept, which is 0, 1. So there's my y-intercept. Okay, we have our reflection, which is negative 4, 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And you can kind of see what this is looking like. My axis of symmetry is going to be x equals negative 2. So 1, 2, right here. Okay. Let's go ahead and draw that in. And that looks pretty good, okay? So that's what you have, and we're going to call that the axis of symmetry, and that's x equals negative 2. Okay, make sure you always label that. My actual equation is y equals x squared plus 4x plus 1. Okay, my solutions, which we already did, those are my x-intercepts. Okay, my domain, my x values are going to be negative infinity to infinity. Okay, and my range is going to be my minimum all the way up. So we're going to have a, what is that, negative 3, comma, infinity. Okay, and there you have it. If you wanted to, you could have added one more point. We could have just picked a number to get 2 more nice numbers, but for purposes of timing, I didn't do that. Okay, we are going to go ahead, and that took a while. We are going to go on to number 54. Okay, so that's going to be, if we flip back here, we're going way back into our packet. I'm going to skip around quite a bit today. That is on page 23. This is hard to see. Let's raise this a little bit. Sorry about that. Okay, we are on page, what did I say? Page 23. Okay, I'll give you a second to flip to that. I'm flipping to my notes here. Okay. Okay, number 54 is what we're going to start with now. Okay, and it says, to complete the table below using the most efficient method, Show all your work in the space below as if it were a test and circle your final image. So we have y equals 4 times x minus 5 squared minus 16. And I hope that you recognize that this is in vertex form. Okay, when you have vertex form, okay, you should remember that by now. We are going to have, just write it over here on the side, we have y equals a times x minus h, quantity squared, plus k. There's your vertex form, okay? So to work to find the x-intercepts, well, we're going to set it equal to 0. 4 times x minus 5 squared minus 16. I'm going to add my 16 to both sides. I get 16 equals 4 times x minus 5 squared. I'm looking to solve this, so I'm going to divide by 4. It looks like I have nice numbers here. 4 equals x minus 5 quantity squared. Okay, you should recognize by now that we're going to take the square root of that to get rid of the squared. And that's a positive or negative 2. Oh, we're going to get a nice number. That's great. Okay, we get x minus 5 equals positive or negative 2. I add my 5, and I'm going to get x equals, let's see, 5 plus 2 is going to be 7. 5 minus 2 is 3. So x equals 3. And x equals 7. Okay, so that's the work for the x-intercepts, which we should also know by now is also called the solutions. Okay, if we look down to the work for the y-intercepts, that's when x equals 0, or you can think of it as 0 comma a number. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to fill 0 in for x. Y equals 4 times 0 minus 5 squared minus 16. This one you should be able to do quickly. Y equals 4 times negative 5 squared, 16. We've got order of operations, negative 5 squared is first. We've got 100 minus 16. So y equals, what is that, 84? So we've got 0 comma 84 as our y-intercept. Okay, our axis of symmetry. You should know that, let's skip down actually. Let's go to our vertex first. We know that our vertex is our h comma k. Okay, so if we go all the way back up and look at this, it's the opposite of what's inside. So the opposite of negative 5 is 5. And my k is negative 16. Okay, so there's my vertex. We always know that when we're talking about our axis of symmetry, it's the x value of my vertex. So it's x equals 5. There's no work to show. Okay? Okay, 55. Let's try another. Oh, this one you should recognize is an intercept form. Okay? Looks like intercept form to me, which is y equals a times x minus p times x minus q, right? That's supposed to be a q. It doesn't look much like one. Okay, that is our intercept form. So my work for my intercept form, well, this one's pretty easy. Intercept form or solutions, x-intercepts, I should say. X plus 4 equals 0, and x minus 8 equals 0. So there are my two solutions, or my x-intercepts. Work for the y-intercepts, it's when x equals 0. So we're going to go ahead and put 0 in for x. So we've got 0 comma, what is that, negative 32. Okay, there's my y-intercept. This is pretty simple. Okay, work for my axis of symmetry. Remember, when we're talking about our axis of symmetry, it's the solutions average. Okay, remember we take p plus q divided by 2 when it's in x-intercept form. So x equals, we had negative 4 plus 8 divided by 2. So my axis of symmetry is x equals 2. And then to find the vertex, you put 2 in for x and solve for y. Y equals 2 plus 4 times 2 minus 8. 6 times negative 6, negative 36. So vertex is always an ordered pair, so 2 comma negative 36. And if you think about it, your minimum is going to be y equals 36. Okay? And that's because we have a positive a. It's going to open upward, so we know that's a minimum. Okay? Okay, great. Let's go on to, I want to do problem number 59. Okay, so we're on page 25 now. You can keep going there. I'm going to flip to my notes here. Okay. And we are going to do number 59 on page 25. Okay, write the equation y equals 5x squared minus 10x plus 37 in vertex form. Okay, if we recall, okay, we want to get this into vertex form. We can do this a couple different ways. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find out what my axis of symmetry is. Okay, and the reason I'm going to do this, and if we think about it, like we talked about on the previous page, I'm going to show you here. I think I wrote it for you. Your vertex form is y equals, let's write that, y equals a times x minus h quantity squared plus k. Okay, there's my vertex form. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to calculate my axis of symmetry, which is x, because I'm in standard form. Right now I'm in standard. X equals negative b over 2a. That's supposed to be an equal sign. So I've got a negative 10 over 2 times 5. That's going to give me 10 over 10 or 1. Okay, so there is my axis of symmetry, but it's also the h value of my vertex. Okay, then I'm going to plug that in to get my, that's my axis of symmetry, sorry. But that's also the first part of my vertex, okay, the x value. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fill that in. Y equals 5 times 1 squared minus 10 times 1 plus 37. Okay, and that's going to give me y equals negative 5 plus 37, or y equals 32. Okay, so if you think about it for a second, okay, we've got our h, that was 132. That's my h and my k when you're in vertex form. Okay, we also know if we look up here, we've got our a value, which is 5. Okay, we can plug this in. Y equals a, which we said was 5, times x minus, what was my h? 1 squared plus 32. And there you have it. I'm in vertex form, okay? My vertex, like we said, was 132. My axis of symmetry is x equals 1, okay? So let's see, they said, we kind of already did this backwards, right? My a was 5, my h was 1, and my k was 32. The parabola opens. Well, we know it's a positive value, so it's going to open up. There's a vertical, let's see, it's a factor of 5, right? So it's going to be a stretch by a scale factor of k equals 5. Is it a reflection in the axis, the x-axis? It is not, because that was a positive a. Okay, so it's not a reflection. A horizontal, that's this way, okay? That's like the horizon, your x-axis. Was there one? Well, sure. And if you look at it, remember it's the opposite. So instead of being left, it's actually right of 1. So we're going to do right by 1. And then the up and down is the vertical, and it was up by 32. Okay, so hopefully that's kind of a refresher on what we've been doing up until this point. Let's go ahead and let's turn to problem. I'm just skipping all around today, I know. Let's go ahead and let's go over to page 27. Okay. Okay, we are on page 27, and we are going to do a few problems in a row, actually. Let's do 62. Okay, it says, solve using the designated method. We are going to use the square root method. Okay, that's probably one of the easiest ones there is. You're just taking the square root. Okay, so if I do that here, I can see that I have a 3/2 that is in the way. So in order to get rid of that, you can divide by 3/2, or it's the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. Okay, so we're going to get x plus 1 quantity squared. Let's see, 33 times 2/3. It's going to give me 22. Okay, I'm going to take the square root of both. When you take the square root, it's positive, negative. So x plus 1 equals positive or negative square root of 22. There's no perfect square. 2 times 11. Yep, there's no perfect square, so I can leave it like that. I'm going to subtract 1, and I get for my exact answer, x equals -1 plus or minus the square root of 22. Okay? For my approx, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to put it in my calculator. Okay? I've got -1 minus the square root of 22. That's -5.69. Okay? And then I've got -1 plus the square root 22. So I get, what is that, 3.69, let's say? Okay, and there you have it. Okay, let's go ahead and let's go to 63. Okay, now we're going to complete the square. We did one of those a few minutes ago. Okay, first thing you have to remember, your a value, or well, let's not use that. A coefficient must be 1. Okay, it is not 1. So I'm going to go ahead, I can get it to be 1 by dividing by 2. Okay, so I have x squared plus 12x plus 5 equals 0. Next thing I have to move, I just want my a and b term, so I have to move that over, subtract 5. I get x squared plus 12x equals -5. Okay, now I'm all good. I have my b term. I have to find my new c value. That is going to be 12, it's my b, over 2 squared, which is 6 squared, which is 36. Okay, now remember, if you do something to one side, you have to do it to both sides. So we've got x squared plus 12x plus 36 equals -5 plus 36. Okay, that's good there. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to factor that. That's x plus 6 quantity squared equals 31. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the square root of both, positive, negative. We get x plus 6 equals positive or negative square root of 31. Okay, there's no perfect square that comes out, so I can go ahead and I can just subtract 6. X equals, and this is going to be my exact right away, x equals -6 plus or minus the square root of 31. If I want my approx, okay, it's x equals approximate. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that in my calculator. Okay, and I'm going to get, and you can do that yourself, I'm going to get a -11.57, and I'm going to get an x equals -0.43. Okay, let's go ahead and let's go to the next page. We're on we're on number 64, page 28. I'm going to go ahead and I want to do the first one, which is the quadratic formula. Okay, it's been a while, I know. You should all know what the quadratic formula is. If you don't remember, x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. Okay, that's my quadratic formula. If you don't remember, go back and look at your notes. Okay, this is a good one to do the quadratic formula anyway because I don't have a 1 in front of my x squared. So it's just easier to do the quadratic formula. Okay, but I shouldn't say easier because it still is tedious. Okay, so we've got a -b. My b is -4. If it helps, a equals -3, b equals -4, c equals 10. Okay, so we've got a -4 plus or minus the square root of -4 squared minus 4 times a, which is -3, and c, which is 10, all over 2 times a, which is -3. Okay, and now it's just a matter of making sure you do all the numbers right. X equals, that's a 4, plus or minus, it's going to be 16. Let's see, it's 4 times 3 is 12, would be 120. Okay, all over -6. And we're going to get, let's see, x equals 4 plus or minus 136 over -6. Okay, now I want you to recognize, I hope, that you can pull out a 4 and that's a perfect square. So we're going to do x equals 4 plus or minus. That's 4, and 136 divided by 4 is 34, I think. All over -6. Okay, there's my perfect square. I can pull that out. 4 plus or minus 2 root 34 over negative 6. Okay, this is about as complicated as they get. Okay, you can see that we can do some simplification. Okay, 2 goes into all of those evenly. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to go up here. We're going to have an exact. Okay, you can divide by 2. We're going to have 2. That's a negative. 4 over negative 6 is a negative 2/3. Plus or minus. That's going to be a negative 3 on bottom. So plus or minus, let's see, square root of 34 over 3. That should be my exact. I should say an x equals. Okay. Sorry, I keep pausing. I'm looking at my time. I'm running out of time. And then my approx. Okay. You can do this as approximately negative 2.61, and x equals approximately 1.28. You can put those in your calculator. Okay. And that's where we get those. And you're probably asking me why, if that was a negative 6, I didn't take care of that, but I did. Because if you think about it, a negative and a positive or a negative is still going to give me a positive or a negative. Okay, so it still stays positive or negative on top. Okay, let's see how many more I have. Well, I'm not going to get through as much as I want, but that's okay. We are going to do, let's look at 65. That can be our last problem for the day. Okay, solve using the best method. Okay, I hope you can look right away and see square root. Okay, I'm going to use the square root method. Why? Well, it's in simple vertex form. Okay, simple vertex form, and there's no b. So that makes that a very easy problem to do. 5 times x minus 8 squared equals 15. I'm going to divide by 5. I get x minus 8 squared equals 3. Square root it. Oopsie. X minus 8 equals positive or negative square root of 3. We're going to add 8, and we get x equals 8 plus or minus square root of 3. Okay, there's my exact. And my approx is going to be, let's see, we've got a 6.27 and looks like a 9.73. Okay, so there are your answers. If you just look real quick, I know I said I was done, but I'm going to look at 1 or 2 more right here. If you look at the best method, I don't know if you'll see this right away. If I move everything to one side and put it in standard form, I can right away see that the factors of 49, negative 7 and a negative 7, right? It's going to equal negative 14. So I can say that I can factor easy. So I would just do x minus 7 squared equals 0. Pretty simple. Square root, x minus 7 equals 0. Fit one more problem in, didn't I? Okay, so that wasn't so bad. And I believe, just looking to make sure there's nothing else I absolutely have to do, and there's not. Okay, so those are some good refreshers. I would go back, I would look at those, I would do the practice problems, and we're going to take a online quiz, I believe, on Wednesday just to see how it goes. So I would make sure I've reviewed this. I'd reviewed my old notes. I do the homework tonight. I'll post a key, and we should be good to go on the review. Okay, and that is it.